I'm very happy to see a few hardy souls decided to stay on and help with this, I guess, the hard work of reviewing the policy framework document. I want to alert my colleagues from CTU who are supporting. And I think in this session, we would need to allow for some interventions from the floor. So I will ask for your assistance in keeping an eye on the attendees list and the panelists as well, for identifying, to me, persons who might want to speak. Actually, it would so much more, it would be more important for the attendees because at least the panelists would be able to make themselves heard, but not the attendees. So if we could focus on the attendees and draw it to my attention, anyone who might want to speak. Okay, in terms of what I propose to do, I propose to look at the document. There are some comments that are in there, not from a whole lot of people, but there are some comments that are in there that we can look at and discuss. And from time to time, I guess we would need to get expressions of support or other comments coming from those in the audience. So you can do that either by posting something on the chat, yes, I agree, or no, I don't agree, or if it's necessary to make an intervention, you click the raise hand button and we'll seek to give you an opportunity to do so. So what I would do is share my screen, and I'll use that as our Blackboard for the session. Okay, I'm screen sharing, so you should be seeing that Google Doc that we were asked to be taking a look at. Let me just clear my thing on the bottom here. Oops, what did I do? Okay. Okay, I'm back. Right, are you all seeing the reviewing the Caribbean Internet Governance Policy Framework document? I need a positive yes from someone who can speak. All right, good. Thank you, good. So this is what was circulated, and as I reminded you yesterday, what it has in it is both the existing statements and the proposed statements. It shows what the status of the proposals were, and you were asked to basically give your comments on it. So if I start with the vision statement, it says, well, the existing statement was a knowledge-based Caribbean community, blah, blah, blah. And we had narrowed it down to two options, which were quite similar. And I think the real issue was only centered around the inclusion of the word equal. I think it was related to the use of the word equal. And I put a comment there in terms of what my preference is, because, just a sec, let me just minimize that some, right. In terms of what my preference is, I think inclusive, I agreed with. Equal, my feeling was that for us to create an equal society, it would require significantly more than just what we're proposing in an internet governance document. Whereas for inclusive, certainly the use of the technology, the internet and ICT plays a significant part in making a society inclusive. So my preference was to include inclusive and not equal. I don't have any negative comments to my reasoning, and maybe I could ask let me just come back to not full size, but I'm not sure how I'm seeing the participants. Oh, here we go. Right. So, or the chat. Let me look at the chat. You're not seeing the chat. All right. I guess I have to depend on my colleagues to help me out with the responses. So I was saying I didn't see any negative comments to my stated preference there. And for those who are there right now, if you have any comments you would like to make, now would be the time to do so. Otherwise, we would more or less go forward with the first option using the word inclusive. Okay.
Well, Nigel, there's agreement from Carlton to remove the equal, so you have some
At
support.
least one. And then I think Deirdre would have seen it as well and not objected, so that's another one. All right, let me say though that what we'll seek to do here is, after this discussion is kind of reconsolidated, and I'll still circulate it again tomorrow, so people will have the chance at least tomorrow to, or at least until tomorrow to submit any further comments. All right. All right, in terms of the mission statement, there is the existing mission statement there. Develop and maintain the appropriate regional multi-stakeholder frameworks, mechanisms, blah, blah, to enable universal open access to regional information infrastructure and so on. And this is linked to global information resources. So that first bullet relates to infrastructure and has a particular way of stating it. The second bullet, ample supply and capacity for the creation, lawful use and distribution of Caribbean content technologies, relates both to local creativity and competence. And the third one is a statement saying that we want to develop a vibrant digital economy in the Caribbean. In terms of the proposals, there was it was proposed to add some additional words like collaborative, and instead of enable, to say either achieve or provide. I didn't put down my preference here, but my preference is enable. Collaborative, I felt, was a little bit redundant, having said multi-stakeholder, because I figure multi-stakeholder is inherently collaborative because you're bringing different groups together. We have a comment here from Deirdre Williams on this, and she was saying, can I question multi-stakeholder and replace it with socially inclusive? And she wants to keep collaborative. So she would say the appropriate regional, socially inclusive, collaborative frameworks, mechanisms, policies, blah, 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 to achieve these things. It's a more, what should I say, non-technical articulation of the thing. I myself believe that multi-stakeholder means something specific, especially in this context, and people understand what it means already. It means government stakeholders, private sector stakeholders, civil society, and we start to make some additional subcategories like technical, community, and academia. Right? So when we say multi-stakeholder, that's definitely the understanding in this context. And like I felt that, that is inherently Of course, if you do not say multi-stakeholder, you maybe you do need to say collaborative, as Deirdre was suggesting. So this is one area where I think we could use some additional comments from the floor. So either something in the chat or something, or someone, if anyone wants to make an intervention.
None here from me.
I thought I heard a voice just now, but I didn't hear
No,
what it said.
yeah, that was me, Bevel. I was just saying, none here from me.
None forthcoming at present.
None from Beverly.
Oh, none from Bevel. Okay.
Just so that
Nigel, there's a message in the chat. Oh, sorry, Bevel. Nigel, I was just letting you know there's a message in the chat.
Right. Somehow, oh, here's the chat. Okay. I was saying, now that I'm sharing my screen in this particular way, I haven't been able to access the chat, but what's happening here now?
There are several no. Nigel.
Okay, let me see. I wish I could see them. You all would have to read them for me. Somehow I can access a list of participants, but I'm not. Okay, let me try something else. I can try something else here. Just not seeing it.
Hello?
Ah, okay, yes, I just got it. Okay, I just got it.
Right, okay.
Nigel, you have a comment coming in from Ms. Bernadette Lewis.
Yes, I noticed that. I'll get down. Let me start
No,
from.
no, I'm actually speaking to you. Her mic is now opened.
Ah, okay. Yes, she.
Open,
Well,
right.
I'll say Miss Bernadette Lewis.
I was just thinking socially, when you say socially inclusive, there are certain connotations associated with that. And I'm thinking, you know, so what about the economic or technical other things? I think the perception or the connotation for me coming from you know, is that it's somewhat restrictive. Whereas multi-stakeholder is kind of hackneyed, you know, yes. And I know that there's a lot of discussion at this time relating to the multi-stakeholder, the whole notion of multi-stakeholder engagement and so on. But I think it still serves our purposes.
Sorry, say that again about multi-stakeholder.
Different groups. I said, I know there's a lot of discussion now about the appropriateness of what we call multi-stakeholderism, and that in many respects it is a sort of hackneyed term, but I feel that it still serves our purposes at this point in time, in that it gives the clear sense that they are diverse players. The term socially inclusive, in my mind, it gives this sense that, okay, socially inclusive, what about economically inclusive? What about technically inclusive? And you could go, the list goes on and on and on in terms of what is not captured in socially inclusive.
Right, right. Okay, that consistent with what you put into the chat. Okay, and Deirdre seems to understand that that comment, the context of that comment. So, all right, so we can continue to use, let me just straighten this up a bit and go back down. All right, so we'll stick with multi-stakeholder. And because it is inherently collaborative, we can, so what did I just do there? All right, let's hold that just so that. As I said, my preference is enable. I saw a comment from Deidre in this regard as well, and she, I think, also preferred enable. Let me just go back so that I can see the whole thing. Yeah, she says, I prefer enable. Achieve doesn't work for everything and provides suggests a dependency approach. So I think enable is it. So we'll stick with that. Universal, open, equitable, secure access. Right, so the question was, do we put in information and communications infrastructure, which was in square brackets. Let's see if yes, I have a comment on that. Deidre is suggesting that we state the communications, which carries a sense of interaction. So she would include information and communication infrastructure. Although she had a singular. I guess it's a style thing. So the suggestion is to leave it in. I am okay with leaving it in. I don't know if we have any other comments from the floor with respect to if we should leave it in. Oh, Mr. Wilson has also made a comment that multi-stakeholder is the acceptable term. So thank you, Mr. Wilson, for that. All right, I'm taking silence to mean consent with respect to leaving in the communications. With respect to the next bullet then, oh no, we're not done yet. Link to global. Initially it said, I think it said link to global resources, link to global information resources. And the thing is, if we are saying information and communication here, we should say information and communication again when talking about the global, right? So that's being consistent, and I suppose that that is not unreasonable. It's a little bit wordy, but it might be tolerable. Link to global ICT resources. Okay. Information communication resources. There was pretty much a new bullet proposed here to speak to human resource and capacity development and retention. I think there was another comment from Deidre here. She's saying knowledgeable, confident, competent users. I think that's the thinking. That's the thinking there. What I had said is that in the original statement up here, where it says ample supply and capacity for the creation, that capacity for the creation also related to human resource capacity, which would pick up the knowledgeable, confident, competent users aspect of what Deidre's comment is. I'm thinking that maybe we can just make it a little more explicit. We don't necessarily need an extra bullet, but maybe make the statement more specific to make it clear that it includes the human resource capacity as well. Right? Maybe it wasn't clear enough in the initial statement, but we can put it in down here in this ample supply capacity. Oh, well, another option, actually, before I decide, before I ask people to decide. Let's look at
Nigel,
the,
there are some comments as well too. You can check your comments. There are
yeah.
comments there.
Okay, let me just check it there on the side.
Selby suggested
From Junior McIntyre should include the word ethical under the first bullet. The first bullet relates to
universal open.
Junior, you could take the floor and say.
No, it was just an observation. I was just thinking if we have universal, open, equitable, affordable, flexible, secure, etc. But ethical seems to be a big issue, especially with AI and emerging technologies. The ethical use of information technology is a very important topic. So
Right.
I don't know if we want to include it there or elsewhere. That's all.
It might be lower down. Somewhere lower down, we're supposed to be talking about use. Expedited. I think lower down, because
no problem.
That first bullet is the infrastructure per se, right?
Okay.
Access to the infrastructure. I think that point you're making might be more appropriate lower down where we're talking about using the infrastructure.
Well, there's also the ethical, considerations for developing technology. So, like AI, for instance, probably that's the most obvious one now, pain point, where people use the way, especially in HR, I know that's a concern, and in across all disciplines, the use of artificial intelligence to how it impacts human decision making, how it impacts, that aspect of it. So inherent in the technology design and architecture, if there could be some scenarios where the technology can have a negative impact or an unethical result coming out of the ways designed, information is solicited without person's consent, etc., using AI. So even decision making.
I would say that to my mind, that first bullet deals with like ease of access, ease of proper access, and so on. And
okay, all right.
And I would bring that ethical element maybe into the same bullet we're looking at right now, where we're talking about ample supply and creation for lawful use and so on, and maybe even the next bullet where we're talking about developing a digital economy. We could try to get some words there that relate to ethical methods or something, but certainly my thinking was that first bullet was simply ensuring people have access to the technology.
Okay.
And later on we deal with the more other things. I don't know if Deirdre, I saw she was agreeing with your inclusion of ethical. I don't know if she agrees to putting it lower down where we're talking about the applications rather than the basic access. So you could probably let us know. Ms. Bernadette Lewis is suggesting that should we add reliable to the first bullet? We have open, equitable, affordable, flexible, and secure access. Or maybe we say high capacity, resilient national and regional information and so on, so infrastructure. I think I prefer to say resilient rather than reliable as an adjective. Is that acceptable? Okay, that might be good, and I would put it back again. I can put in that word, high capacity, comma. Resilient national infrastructure linked to so-and-so. All right, that's very good. Deidre would decide when we get down to the particular point as to where we put in the ethical element. Okay. So we said yes to this communications. With respect to the human resources, capacity to use and so on, I suggested that we don't put a separate bullet for it, but we just clarify within this ample supply and capacity bullet that it includes the human resource aspect of it. If that is, because it initially was meant to be included in there. So we could make it more explicit in the statement. Let me see what other comments we have on this one. Right, so it was suggesting, well, maybe rather than complicate this bullet, make it two bullets. One is ample supply and capacity for creation of lawful Caribbean content, and two, ample supply and capacity for lawful use and distribution. So that in such a formulation, the first bullet, I guess, would include the HR thing, and the second bullet we would have to try to incorporate the ethical use elements. Or maybe both, I don't know. The first one probably, because you're creating contents and applications. Content, probably, content and applications. Okay, or content and technologies. Okay, I'm open to comments here from people to see what is what. In my mind, what I have is we are going to incorporate or clarify the requirement for the human resource aspect. We need to incorporate the ethical aspect in here as well, and maybe in such a case, two bullets might be useful. I don't think I can come up with the two statements as I speak right now, but I could probably propose something, or if someone can, you all can just propose it probably in the chat or in the document itself after we finally. Oh, by the way, yes, yeah, maybe propose it either in the chat for me to put in now if you have it, or afterwards into the document itself, and we'll circulate it and try to see if we could build a consensus by tomorrow.
Nigel, there are some comments in the chat from Deidre and from Junior.
Yes, okay, let's see. Just checking the chat now. Okay, Jean-Sebastian had to leave. Thank you very much, Jean-Sebastian. Ethical, resilient. Okay, a little bit, okay, Deirdre, hang on. Access isn't really ethical. Ethical is describing access, not use. That won't work. Bullet one, tech resources. Two, bullet, oh, okay, so she suggested in terms of the bullets, we use one for tech resources, one for human resources. Three, which relates to content. Four, use and distribute content, and 5, economic development. So she gave some suggestions there, which I suppose we can consider. I'm not quite clear though on a first comment, but let me just go on down. Junior suggesting the Huawei mystery might be a case in point as it relates to ethical access to infrastructure. I think I need to explain that for me. I'm not following. Yeah, Junior, you can go ahead with that.
No, it's just a consideration. I know, like we know about the current, debacle and the current issue with Huawei, the accusations in terms of the infrastructure that is inherently porous in terms of security holes, or intentionally so, designed to allow a backdoor access to other networks, other equipment that resides on a core infrastructure, core network infrastructure. So that is in and of itself. I mean, most of the equipment we're talking about, core infrastructure, does provide access, whether it's from distribution point or core infrastructure. All right. So I mean, so all that is part of the access. So I again, not wanting to give up on the notion that ethical use or the word ethical should not be included should be excluded once you're talking about access.
So maybe it's 2 places then.
Yeah. I that's just, yeah.
So, okay, flexible, secure, and ethical access then.
Yes. I don't know if anybody else has a counter position or otherwise.
Madam, we have a comment coming in from Deidre Williams. She would like to speak on the.
So doesn't think that's Trump's battle?
Yes, that too.
Mr. Wilson, do I agree with you? Yeah.
Am I really allowed to join in?
Yes, you are.
Okay, I was agreeing with Junior. Huawei is a very good example as long as we don't try winning Mr. Trump's battle for him. It's a very good example of where there might be a question over ethics.
Yes, okay. No, I took that one, so maybe we could talk about it in 2.
And we also have NSA, prior to Trump's tenure, you have NSA and all the issues with infrastructure, undersea cable and access to, data.
Right.
And I've heard that from persons in the, public fora speaking about it. So, yeah, Huawei is just one example, but there are others.
Thank you, Bevel. Thank you.
Yes.
And Bevel is included Facebook in that as well.
Oh, he says on Facebook. Yes. Okay. All right, good.
Nigel, could I ask you something?
Yes, you may.
The one I suggested splitting into 2 bullet points.
Yes.
What I was trying to do was summarize what I saw as being the function of each bullet point. Do you see those the same way? Is one about tech resources or access resources and so on, or not? I may have misunderstood your intention.
Yes, if I go back up to the existing, right? The first bullet was intended to be the technical resources, the infrastructure.
Right.
The second bullet related to the capacity to exploit the infrastructure, right? What do we do with it? And we have to use it effectively and so on. And the third thing is
The economy.
also using it for developing this digital economy thing, right? So the second bullet in the original statement talked about capacity, capacity and use, I suppose, right? Capacity to exploit it. So as it is right now, and you are suggesting, oops, wait a minute.
The problem with the long bullet, the existing long bullet point, is you've got a verb that doesn't work. Hang on.
And it's going to be longer now because we're putting in and communications.
We're in the wrong point. I'm further down at number 3.
This one?
Yeah. When I came to read it, the issue of the non-Caribbean content at the end. Sorry, I need to read it again. Supplying capacity for creation and distribution. You cannot create non-Caribbean content. So if you want the verb to be create, or there to be this idea of creation, it has to be tied to Caribbean content, and the non-Caribbean content and the Caribbean content both need to be used and distributed. But that was why I split it into 2.
Yes, okay, I understand what you're saying. Right, so that's the first one is Caribbean content, and then the second one is both. Okay, I get it.
It's all content.
Yeah. Okay, and in the, let me go back up to the original statement and see what it was. It focused only on Caribbean content. All right, so we can expand that to show that it's not just Caribbean content we're talking about, but being able to use other content as well for our purposes. Okay, I understand that. The human resources aspect. Oh, you offer these words: knowledgeable, confident, competent users. And I was saying that it was included in here. So we'd have to find some wordsmithing to include the relevant points. I think we agree on what has to be included. I think it's really just a question of finding the right words to put there.
Right.
Right? Okay. All right. Let me not spend too much more time trying to wordsmith it right now. I'll wordsmith it and put it back up for people to see if they're happy. But let's see if we could agree at least what should be in and what should not be in. And then another thing in here, we want to include ethical as well. We want to include ethical again. So I'll put it here to remind myself. Then, right, the last one was the next one was the digital economy. And the suggestion was to include additional words talking about incentives, standards, or requirements for, what's the chapeau? I forget the chapeau now. Develop all these frameworks to enable expedited development of a digital economy in the Caribbean. Vibrant is a good adjective, I guess we can consider. Do we need to put in any of these other words about incentives and so on? If we're talking about enabling the expedited development of a thing. Let's see. Deirdre had a suggestion, the incentives, to enable the incentives and standards for expedited development of a digital economy in the Caribbean. That's reasonable sounding. our work must, although it might be a limiting incentives and standards for expedited development. Incentives, standards, and is that all? You know, I'm thinking of something. Is there something more general we could put? Not environment, but the tools, something. I'm thinking it's more than just incentives and standards, but I'm open to comments. Let's see if we have.
Nigel, you have 2 items in the chat from June Harris and Mr. Selby Wilson.
Cannot discount their questionable information, right? Then Mr. Wilson is saying all cell phone providers collect information from users of their equipment. It's not only Huawei. Will this document be sent out for, is that for editing? Maybe it's for editing. It would. Actually, after this discussion, we would, as I said, I'll repost it for general review again. Mr. Wilson, if you're trying to intervene, you're muted. Then he has connectivity to rural and underserved areas should be included somewhere. All right, connectivity is in the first bullet, and we should, we ought to have something like ubiquitous to cover that.
Or inclusive.
I forget what's the word we have. What are the words we have? Yeah, how come we don't have ubiquitous? Oh, we have universal. There's universal we have.
I don't know if universal covers a specific point of ensuring connectivity to the rural and underserved areas.
But when they coming up with a policy for those places, they call it a universal service policy. So that's really what it meant.
I prefer to be a little more specific than universal.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Wilson there. Inclusive, I like the suggestion he made with inclusive. I think that's, you know, the trending right now in terms of the approach rather than just geographical coverage. You know, because you could have full coverage, but you know, depending on the type of technology you're using, it's still excluding people in certain areas because depending on the devices they have, depending on the cost of it, you know. So
I wonder if we still have anybody from TAT on board. Have anybody from TAT, Dexter or Kirk there in the list? Because I think universal service includes all that.
Yes. Kirk is there, Nigel. Maybe Kirk could weigh in on the discussion.
Yeah, Kirk, you would have to allow him to speak. I think all that is universal service. That's what we're saying there. Let's see if I could see participants.
Nigel, you'll have to unmute him. I don't have.
He might be there. Wait, let me see.
Both Dexter, well, I'm seeing both Dexter and Kirk.
All right, let me.
Yes.
One of the reasons that
he's given the authority to speak now.
Because it is an area where providers would not normally go. And therefore you have to bring focus to it, and the governments must be aware of it and they must be prepared to incentivize investments in those areas. You're not going to get.
But I'm saying that's what universal service is.
Well,
You know, when we say universal service, we're talking about all those things. Let me.
I still believe universal is not clear enough.
Well, okay.
How do we reach the unconnected? That's a big issue, reaching the unconnected.
I am agreeing with you, but I'm saying that it's there. You know, it is there. It was there in the original formulation as well. As the first word we have. Anyhow, what would be the alternatives? You know, so. And depending on how many words we end up with, we might have to, I guess, reformulate it a bit so that it reads easy enough. We've already put in ethical and resilient. I think those are aspects we did not have before. I'm thinking that universal is clearly universal service there, but the only doubt I have is to make sure that the universal covers the persons with disabilities kind of thing. Persons with disabilities, or, you know, this doesn't relate to Yassine's point about meaningful connectivity. It's not establishing any specific minimum standard, but it says high capacity resilient, you know, so it's a little flexible in that sense because that standard will change from time to time. 5 years ago, we weren't talking about 4G as the standard. Today, they're proposing 4G as the minimum, right? 5 years from now, maybe if you don't have 5G, then you're underserved. You know, so we have to leave a little bit of flexibility in there, in the wording. But I really don't think we've missed anything with respect to availability of the geographical or special needs and that sort of thing. And that's the thing the clarity I would like to get from, maybe I'll look up the universal service definitions and make sure it is as I think it is. Junior, you're saying you like inclusive. Where would inclusive go?
Oh, no, I mean, I just sent before you, I know you said you look up a definition, but I sent one a little before. Universal access is creating equal access opportunity for all community members by reducing barriers. I mean, that might be a very simple one. I'm sure from a
Where did you send it?
I just sent it in the chat. You know, we were discussing it.
Oh, universal access. We can get that served with equal access for all community members by reducing barriers. Yeah. And Ms. Lewis said it's a moving target, put universal beside access. So it's clear. So we don't miss it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I guess the thinking was that you You put it first, but then you have so many things after it, you could miss it. All right, we could consider that, putting the universal right next to access. So secure and ethical universal access by Caribbean citizens to so and so. All right, so let's consider moving that here. And put it there instead. So we don't lose the importance of it. All right, so we were down here. I didn't have the right words, but I think we agreed what needed to be included in this ample.
And Nigel, just for your clarification, there's a difference between universal access and universal service.
Okay.
Access is achieved when 100% of our country's population can access affordable basic telecommunication services, either on an individual or shared public access basis. Examples of publicly accessible accessing these basic services can be through community access centers, internet kiosks, and public payphones. Universal service, on the other hand, based on the concept of universal access. This is achieved when basic telecommunication services are both accessible and affordable and are delivered on either household or individual basis. Therefore, universal service speaks about 100% of the population being able to subscribe and use these basic services on a household or individual basis. So using universal word by itself is not all-encompassing.
Well, we have universal, we have affordable as well, separately. All right. Let me not kill too much more time on this.
Okay, well, something to look at.
Yeah. I take the point in terms of, I'll just write down the word service so that it's not forgotten. I know it's not in the right place, but it just will remind me to settle the point when we reformulating it.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. Okay. And then Deidre asked about connection. Connection meaning what? Instead of the word access? I'm not sure. Can you use connection to embrace access and service? Not by itself. I don't think we could use it by itself. John Lewis is saying, maybe we can use the term universal service in conjunction with universal access, and it should result in less verbiage and be succinct. I still think if even we use universal service, that we should still use affordable, because that it wouldn't always be understood if we just say universal service. But the thinking is that, you know, it should be available everywhere and to a common standard. So, all right, I'll only give me a little homework here with respect to trying to reformulate this to post it back, put a post-it back this evening. Yes, I know he did. Yes, in Mr. Wilson's definition, he did say affordable, but I don't know that it would come across to all readers in it. My preference is to retain these explicit word affordable. Except we put a footnote or something. But yeah, all right. Okay, so I was saying down in this ample one, we kind of knew what we wanted to put. We were at the incentives section, and Deidre had proposed a wording which to my mind was non-reasonable. Oh, no, the question was, is it just incentives and standards? Or is it more than just incentives and standards? You know, so as it was worded, it just said to enable expedited development of digital economy in the Caribbean. We could say vibrant digital economy in the Caribbean. If we are enabling expedited development of a digital economy, though, it would mean that we're putting in place everything that's required, incentives, standards, from a policy point of view. You know, I'm thinking that it might be more than just incentives and standards. So if we just say incentives and standards, it might be limiting what needs to be done or what could be done. So I think we would just want to enable expedited development of a vibrant digital economy. Any objections? Because that's a little more inclusive to me. This last line about make, manage, market, monetize was a comment that came from an attendee at last year's forum, who was saying that we should think also beyond just establishing, maybe encouraging I guess monetization of the digital economy, digital monetization within digital economy, you know, applications within the digital economy. I'm really not quite sure how to articulate this idea, except maybe we incorporate it into the digital economy one. I'm open to suggestions on that one. I don't know how I would include it otherwise. But it also relates to the human resources, developing those competent human resources, because in order to exploit the possibilities, you have to develop that capacity, and I guess that's where maybe we could have some incentives being put in. But it relates to the development of the vibrant digital economy. So we'll just leave it as expedited development, but we could make the digital economy vibrant. We could go with that. All right, it is 4:20, so let me see how far we could get with this last one. Well, actually, it is two more. Let's just take a quick overview of what we have in the last two. We have guiding principles, and the proposals were not much different from what was existing. It's just that the proposals were kind of bullet points rather than full prose like the existing statements. Let's see what comments we have here in this section on proposals. Inclusiveness and broad stakeholder engagement within and across the Caribbean. Let's see what we have in the original. Broad engagement of all stakeholders. A question is asked about what about collaborations outside CTU? The comment is the CTU has been driving this, but the CTU is not Caribbean Internet Governance and doesn't claim to be. Therefore, these collaborations should be automatic. Inclusiveness and broad stakeholder engagement within and across the Caribbean. I don't understand the difference between within and across the Caribbean, except it meant to say within the Caribbean and outside the Caribbean. Any clarification there, Deidre? It looks like that was your comment. Within and across the Caribbean. That to me.
My idea was you need to get everybody in Trinidad to agree what they're doing, but you also need to get Suriname, Trinidad, St. Kitts, the Dominican Republic, you know, the whole bang shooting to agree what they're doing on a small scale, a small local scale, but also broadly involving everybody. OECS is collaborating like mad at the moment with each other quite successfully. CARICOM is not doing such a good job of it.
So maybe we could say locally and across the Caribbean?
Okay.
Okay. All right, and then there was a question about collaboration. Oh, you were saying, so your suggestion there is that
omit.
Well, if we say across the Caribbean, it's across the Caribbean.
No, I mean, leave out the collaborations outside the CTU.
Yeah, and I'm thinking that if we're talking about across the Caribbean, it's not relevant to CTU. It's Caribbean. All right, so if I say take that out. People are okay with flexible policy approaches and governance, regional harmonization, equitable treatment of all stakeholder groups, capacity building for all stakeholders as necessary, okay? Regulation that promotes competitive markets and innovation while protecting the rights and basic needs of all users.
You need a balance between...
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Anybody, if anyone has any issues, please comment. Your preferred formulation is take due account of. I'm okay with that. Take due account of disaster preparedness and management needs. That relates to the need for resilience. Or maybe we could say to ensure resilience of.
Yes.
Right.
And you don't need an of, you can just have resilience.
Resilience. Ensure resilience. Okay.
Well, is it critical infrastructure? We want to be specific here. Resilience in terms of, or is it broader?
Actually, I'm not sure. So
okay.
I could undo what I just did. I don't know. Okay, I'll leave the of with a question mark.
You know what's
I'll have to look
happening,
back.
Nigel?
Mhm.
I'm going to fight you all the way to include the people. That's what's going on here.
Where you mean?
Do you follow me? In this framework, it's not just about policy for technology, it's about policy for the region, about the technology and its use. And the people using the technology are people. So
Yes.
they need to put in an appearance as well. I think I've fought you about that since framework version 1.
Right. No, but your comment about that is one we coming to now, or we've or it's
Well, the resilience needs to be, it needs to help everybody after a disaster. I mean, the critical infrastructure is critical, but you also need to consider what's happening to people. So resilience covers everything.
Everything, right? Not just infrastructure.
So critical infrastructure and human capacity, probably, something like that.
Or livelihoods. As I say, it might be that the element of the people was taken up in one of the other bullets. I think I'll have to reread all to make sure that it's covered, right? So let me not, because I'm just looking at where the comments came in right now, but I'll have to do a kind of overall reading of it as well to make sure that we include everything that we have in mind. So the of and the question mark will remind me of what we were talking about there. And take into account and coordinate with international, let me see where that came from. Oh, appropriate, this was this last bullet here. Appropriate consideration of international trends and best practices, particularly those arising from the global IGF and its concepts of openness, blah, blah, blah. Take into account and coordinate with international critical issues and good practices. Then ensure meaningful Caribbean participation in global rulemaking for the internet. We had, okay, then global partnership for SDGs. Okay, I think this was a specific comment, but we don't need to, I think we don't need to be so specific in identifying SDG numbers and that sort of things. Right, so collaboration and cooperation. So yes, so I'm thinking that this could use some rewording that makes it less specific in terms of naming SDGs. I think the concepts are the same here. We just have to get the right wordings to go with it. Yeah, I don't think we really have any dissonance of thought on this particular one. This is the last part, which is table 4 of 4 strategic priority areas. We have the same 6: infrastructure, internet technical operations, legal frameworks, internet content, public awareness, and research. And the proposals were infrastructure. Yes, sir. Let me just check back something, please. Yes, okay. The same infrastructure for broadband connectivity, internet technical infrastructure, 4, 5, 6. Right, so it's the same 6, but maybe we were saying, maybe is there any need to change the descriptors that were associated with it? So for broadband connectivity, we are talking about access, connectivity, quality of service, and regulation. I had a question about whether narrowband access, what about narrowband access? Because if we're saying infrastructure for broadband connectivity, do we need to say anything specific about narrowband access here? There might still be applications for which narrowband access is sufficient. Or maybe it's appropriate connectivity, and we put bullets here related to broadband and any other type of access. So for example, some IoT type applications, you don't need broadband for. You know, you have a sensor out there that sending a little bit of data, but you need the connectivity. So maybe, well, that's a thought I have, that maybe we don't need to put the broadband in the left-hand column, but maybe related to the right-hand side when we are describing what type of connectivity we want. Comments available anytime.
Nigel, you have a comment from Mr. John Lewis in the chat?
Yes, in the chat. I'm just looking at it right now. Proposals ought to include an operationalization framework or integrate with an existing, How are we incorporating latest or state-of-the-art technology and technological developments? Proposals ought to include an operationalization framework. Now, where would that go? Because before this was dealing with what are our guiding principles for internet governance. And now we're talking about identifying what the priority areas are. Actually, this operationalization framework is included in the policy framework document, but it's after this. So if you look at the table of contents, you will find the vision, mission, priority areas, and after that we talk about how we bring it into operation. Right? So it is included, but I'll say we haven't gotten to it yet.
Oh, Mr. Lewis's mic is open for him to make a comment.
If you want, okay.
No, I thought that you wanted me to comment, so I was waiting for the question.
Oh, right. No, we saw your chat.
Yes.
We saw your chat, and I was commenting on it. And
yes, I heard.
You were saying it should include an operationalization framework, and I'm saying it does. We just haven't gotten to it yet, if you understand what I mean.
Yes, yes.
At certain sections of the document, and the operationalization is after the ones we're looking at.
Yeah, I must apologize. I'm now seeing this document for the first time. So
okay.
I don't know what's in it. That's why I'm asking.
Right.
And just to also make the point that typical proposals don't seem to focus only on the project area and not on the organization or the environment after the project has been completed. Hence the operationalization framework being critical to the sustainability of the project.
Right.
So the solution being put out.
Yes.
Okay.
Point taken. Actually, in yesterday's workshop, I started off by going through the document. So I gave an overview of it, and I don't know if you saw that. You might not have seen that.
I missed that.
Right. Okay. Well, actually, it's not on the event webpage. I don't think we put it on the event webpage. We should have. I could probably get it put on the event webpage, what the existing policy framework document is.
Yes.
The full one, It's on the CTU website. If you go on CTU website and you look at our projects for Caribbean Internet Governance, the issue 3 of the policy framework is there. CTU.int, and look at the ribbon across the top where they have projects and initiatives. There's a drop down there that will take you straight to Caribbean Internet Governance, and on that Caribbean Internet Governance page has the existing document, and that's the purpose of our workshop here. We're looking at the existing document to see how we might need to update it.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Nigel.
Okay. Right. So
you can mute me back now.
Yes. In terms of the connectivity, I'm thinking now, having seen that narrowband access point, that maybe we need to be a little more general with connectivity and specify broadband on the right-hand side. So I have a comment in here, I guess it's from Deidre. COVID-19 requires that we be able to connect from home, so ICT centers and access at school, etc. won't work. Well, I agree with you on the ICT centers thing. I wouldn't necessarily rule it out entirely, but that certainly can't be the key thrust. We basically have to be looking at, again, the same universal access. So we're talking about significant or meaningful connectivity at home or wherever we might need it. So I take the point. It's not really a bullet that we would include, but I think the consideration would be included in what we put down. No suggested changes to the 2, 3, and 4 priority areas. In terms of public awareness, the suggestion is, let's see, ICT for sustainable development goals, local and regional expertise development, actions for academia concerning internet governance, and encouragement of end user involvement and participation. Let me see if we have any of that in the existing formulation. Well, all we have is education and development of the human resources to manage and use internet resources. Education and development of the human resources to manage and use internet resources. Okay, well, to manage internet, okay. It might be being aware of trends as well, but, and whereas down here we have local and regional expertise development, and there are certain actions for academia. All right, I think the actions for academia and so on, we will be included in the later section where we're talking about policy development areas. All right, but here we basically just trying to describe the scope of work of each of these key priority areas. And the last part is research, measurement and analysis and so on, which is similar to what we had upstairs. And then we have an additional comment, defining appropriate Caribbean indicators to carry out the measurement. So we could be a bit more specific is what we're saying. Let me just go back up to here. It says examination, measurement and reporting on the development and usage of internet resources. So this is broad, and this tries to make it a little more specific in terms of making sure that we come up with appropriate indicators for our requirement. So I'll take that on board, and I'll look at it in the context of the full document and see whether it needs to go in this table here, or whether it needs to be specified in the respective section when we dealing with the section on research. All right, so now I have a little homework to try to pull in the thoughts that we talked about here. So what I'll do, I'll reformulate the words a bit and repost the document. Well, I guess I could do it here. I'll try to do it here first, to tell you the truth. And I'll say overnight people could look back at the document, and so that sometime tomorrow, probably tomorrow afternoon, we could say, okay, we'll take forward this for inclusion into the revised document. And then we'll start to look at some of the other sections as we go forward. Hopefully we'll be able to continue working on it in our discussion forum on the website before long. But I want to say thanks to everybody for enduring.
Nigel, before you wrap up, there were two final comments from Mr. Lewis and from Deidre. Mr. Lewis,
okay, I missed
on
that.
white space, the use of white space.
Let me just find it. Reconnectivity, I recall the notion to use white spaces. Is that still an option? I'm not seeing the word innovation being used as a key driver initiative. I may have missed it. Innovation. Okay, that would have to go in here. Sorry. A guiding principle. I'll just put it down. And if it's not already included, I will I'll make a proposal for consideration. All right, good. Deidre is saying indicators are crucial. So I agree. I'm just wondering where we deal with it, whether in the broad general statement or whether in the specific section where we're dealing with that element. Yes, okay. I think we made progress. And I'm happy to say that. I'm really happy to say that, so I can stop sharing now. And what I'll do, as I said, I'll review all the comments in and do the reformulation. I'll try to do it on the same document, so we wouldn't have to change the link or anything, and or re-upload anything. And I'll ask that you all probably take a look at it later this evening into tomorrow, because we'll probably be getting back to it tomorrow afternoon as a final look over. All right, so thank you very much for holding on with us through this workshop. I know sometimes it's a little painful, but I think it's most useful and rewarding to end up having documented the outcomes of the collaboration. So this document, in fact, is pretty much used as our guidebook for the work that we've done over the years. So thanks for helping to bring it up to date. So with that, actually, I would just like to thank all the participants for today, and ask you to come back tomorrow morning, please God. 9 o'clock, we will start with our final day. And hopefully at the end of it all, I can't say we'll go take a drink, but we'll be well satisfied with our labors for the 3 days. So thank you very much, and see you tomorrow, please God.